Hi, it's me. I am a little bit under the weather than I was when I recorded this, so I'm going to sound a little bit stuffed up, but that's not that big of a deal. People get sick sometimes, even godlike beings like me. Anyways, I wanted to leave you guys this little part right here because I will be referring to certain terminology that I didn't really get into. So I'll leave like the definitions up on this screen. So that way, if you hear me say something that sounds weird, I'll put it here so you can be, oh, that's the weird thing he's talking about. And if it's not on here and it's a weird thing, leave a comment and let me know. And if this video is already too long for you, you can just leave a like and share it and then come back to it whenever you feel like it. How's your day going? I hope it's better than mine because I've had to suffer through so much red pill and black pill content. Please like and subscribe. Thank you oh so much. And I will try to make better videos when I'm not feeling like absolute dog shit. Hi, it's me. We have a new real background because I'm just trying some different content stuff out. So I want to do more casual stuff with this background and more like super focused news things with the other news background you know what I'm talking about. Anyways, I've been doing some research into a very small indie scene called the manosphere. You might have heard of it, you might not have. If you haven't, no big deal. That's what I'm here for. But in doing my research, I came across this very specific, even smaller group you might have heard of called incels. And for those of you, again, who don't know, again, I got you. Incels are involuntary celibate men. Because it's for men. The woman version is geniusly called femcells. And oh boy, that's a thing that we'll get into at a later date. But incels are this large online community of men who feel like they have no shot at getting women, at the very least from a sexual standpoint. That's kind of how they view women and view relationships. It's how much sex is a man getting, which is ultimately one of the negative consequences of masculinity, right? A toxic masculinity. The idea that a man's value is only determined by the amount of women he can get, he can bed. How many chicks can he bang, bro? That's how we talk. Men. But they take this idea and they warp it to such a degree where they have these rules and laws. And I kid you not, just one website alone, so Incels Wiki just has a ton of information here, including things such as looks maxing, gym maxing, status maxing. They have ranks like alpha male, alpha female, beta female, omega female, omega male, sigma, vox day, dominance, hierarchy. Like, you would think these were actual legitimate fields of science and that these people all have degrees and there's this complex system in play. But it's not as complex as one might think. And to really highlight this, I found one channel on YouTube that I just think is the perfect example. So what we're going to do here in this video is a little bit of a split difference. I'm going to have some stuff me talking at you and then just some reactionary content so you guys can see like just what the material is. So let's switch over to React Me. React Me, take it away. All right, you guys, so I found this YouTube channel and it's called Wheat Waffles. And Jesus, let's just look at the option we have here. Why dating as a man is objectively better. Unattractive women are the most entitled. Is beauty written eye of the beholder. The West's inevitable collapse. 4 reasons promiscuity is leading to society's downfall. Oh, we gotta do this.
Promiscuity is rising. The percentage of 18 to 29-year-old women that have had 10 partners or more is at an all-time high at 17%. Over 2 times higher than it was in 1989. Furthermore, for the same group, the percentage that have had sex with a stranger, in other words, from meeting a guy at a bar, club, or dating app, has increased from 20% in 88 to a staggering 60% last year. Now, this video isn't going to be explaining why we've seen a sharp rise in this data, because I already have a video explaining this for which there are
I gotta
6
watch that video then.
Instead, I'm going to be talking about the consequences of what will happen to society if these trends continue.
Wow, did you guys hear that? Society. There's gonna be some massive consequences. Massive. I can't wait to see what kind of consequences it's gonna have. I mean, the video says it's leading to our downfall, so let's see how it leads to our downfall.
And lastly, just so I'm not leaving you in suspense, I can tell you right away, things are not looking good for the future. If things carry on as they are, there will be very dark times ahead for the next generation of children, men, and most surprisingly, women as well.
Most surprisingly.
Anyway, let's get into it. Consequence number 1. The next generation of kids will face hardship. Study after study shows children born in single-parent households perform worse in just about every metric than those born in joint-parent households. They get worse grades at school, are less likely to do sports or extracurricular.
Wait. He's automatically saying is that women who sleep around, which means they would sleep with, I presume we're talking about heterosexual women, other, men, are going to be single mothers automatically. There's a huge leap in logic there to assume that just because someone has casual sex, that when they have children, they will be single mothers. Just that's not how things actually work. You could be having casual sex partners and then find someone you want to be in a relationship with, get into a relationship, have a kid with them. It wouldn't negate the fact that you had casual sex partners, but it wouldn't automatically make you a single mother. Like, that doesn't jive.
To drop out, less likely to go college, have lower employment rates, have lower paying jobs, have worse health and more health problems, are more likely to commit crime and end up in jail, more likely to divorce after getting married, and so on. In fact, the economic situation is so bad that almost half of children born to single mothers are currently living below the poverty line, whereas only 13% of joint parent households are in the same position. Now, obviously, all of these problems are associated with kids being raised by single parents. But what does this have to do with promiscuity?
Yes.
Well, promiscuity, and in particular female promiscuity,
of course,
leads to an increase in single-parent kids for 2 reasons. 1, it increases the number of women that get pregnant by accident. And then, if she decides to keep the baby with no man in place, she will be left to raise the child on her own. And 2, formerly promiscuous women are way more likely to divorce their husbands. 6-fold, in fact, from having 10 or more previous partners, compared to women that have had no premarital partners. And in these couples that end up divorcing where kids had already been born, it means the mother will now be left on her own to raise them. Anyway, of these 2 scenarios, I believe the first is way worse, because the child potentially may never meet his or her father at any stage of upbringing. And when this happens, it has a major negative impact on the child's life.
Okay, so once again, lots of assumptions being made here. It is the fact that if someone gets pregnant, an unplanned pregnancy, they're going to choose to keep it without the father's permission. Or he says if. He relies on lots of ifs. If they do that, then they could potentially not see their parent. And if they don't see their parent, that could lead to bad. Like, there's so many things here that neglect agency or just outside events. Like, what if she wants to have the baby and he doesn't want to be around, so he leaves? Is it now her fault that she's a single mother? What if he pays child support? Does that factor into finances? Would that be better then? Or what if she doesn't keep the child? Like, there's so many things he could be considering, but he's not. He's just going through his line of logic where it's, well, they could be pregnant. And if they're pregnant and the man's not in place, there's no man in place. Does it have to be a man? Could it just be a supportive family? Does it have to be someone who is biologically related to the child? Can it be a family member? Can it be friends? Can it be cousins? Can it be anyone else who could provide support, who could fulfill that role? What if it's another woman? Could that help too? Like, there's so many different circumstances, but instead of looking into any of that, he just says, nah, there's no man in place. Oof, you're fucked. And then I like how he brings the chart out that's like, hey, yeah, women are more likely to get, the promiscuous women are more likely to get a divorce, but doesn't really state why. And that's important. When you're putting out data and graphs like that, it's useless unless you give us context. If the graph shows, yeah, there's an increase in this particular thing, but you don't actually tell us what that increase means or why that's happening, then you're not giving everyone all the information that they need. You're giving us half the info.
How to be a masculine man.
Ah,
Whereas
masculine
for a
man.
girl,
That's key.
she will always have her mother to teach her femininity. As for the second scenario, this is a little better, but still can be bad depending on when the divorce happens. If the parents split up when the child is close to 18, it should be mostly fine because the father was there for the majority of the years. But if it happens when the child was under 5, it's almost as bad as never meeting the father in the first place, because the child has barely developed or had a chance to learn about the world. Anyway, what underpins all of this goes back to the original point of promiscuity. By a mother choosing either to have a one-night stand unprotected, or a wild past that makes her more likely to divorce, both increase the chance you'll end up as a single mother, which as shown impedes the quality of her child's upbringing. Anyway, that's the first point, and for the second consequence, the next group affected by female promiscuity is men. I will tell you though, this point...
How are men... I'm curious to see how men are affected by promiscuity here. I'm very curious.
...is a little nuanced. Because turns out, if you are in the top 10% of men, you actually benefit from promiscuous women.
Yes, here we go. I knew this was going to happen.
If you are in the bottom 90%, you are almost certainly in a worse position. To explain, starting with the top 10%. They benefit because it's in men's evolutionary strategy to attract as many women as possible. In other words, spread their seed far and wide. And because they are in the top 10%, they will have no shortage of options, with women wanting them on a casual basis. And whether or not they actually end up getting these women pregnant, they will still at the least live a life of fulfillment, or at the very least one of recurring dopamine hits. What these men get to enjoy is abundant.
So, reoccurring dopamine hits. There is a very specific way in which incels view sexual relationships. They want to make it as robotic or as clinical as possible. Receiving dopamine hits. You can get dopamine hits from doing so many other things outside of having sex with people. You could get that runner's high. You could bust a nut, you can masturbate. You could achieve something. You could have an adrenaline rush. You could, fucking go skydiving or go on a roller coaster or do anything that gets your heart going. Like, there's so many ways you could achieve a dopamine hit. But for them, they have to phrase it this way because they're basically trying to say that these guys are going to get laid more. Which isn't even a guarantee, too. Like, that's the one thing they don't really talk about. They focus so much on looks. So much on looks. That's part of the black pill, by the way. Real quick, black pill is when an incel realizes that genetics, things like, looks are immutable. So if you're born sub 5 or, you're a Chad, that's it. There's no change. You can never do anything. No matter how much you work on yourself, no matter how much you improve your personality or get a sense of personality or become really witty or talented or anything like that, you will have no shot. It is a defeatist ideology that leads to stuff like this, where the guys in the top 10%, they're going to get all the women. Notice how he even phrases it as life fulfillment. Just by being attracted, their life is fulfilled. Because to them, that's all that matters. If they can get women, life is easy. Life is the best. You have no worries whatsoever, with no issues. I'm going to make a prediction that the guys in the bottom 90% are going to have a real bad time because they're going to have no options to date women because none of them are going to want to date them. And that's going to lead to them being more depressed or more issues. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's see what he actually says.
Variety and novelty because of their high standing position in mate value. Meanwhile, for the bottom 90% of men, they are almost certainly worse off when women embrace promiscuity. And the reason for this, put simply, is because dating is a zero-sum game. So when the top 10% of men capitalise on their abundance of women, it leaves hardly anything for the bottom 90%. In contrast, when monogamy is the presiding structure in dating, it leads to an equal distribution of men and women. So, in theory, it will mean every man has a chance no matter where he falls on the hierarchy. However, now promiscuity is rising, we are seeing less and less of this playing out. In fact, I've showed in these two videos more in depth the consequences of when dating gets more competitive. Feel free to check them out afterwards. Anyway,
I think I will check them out.
That explains how the bottom 90% of men have it worse. Now moving to the next point, which sounds...
Wait, no. Oof, yikes. That right there. The fact that they view dating as a zero-sum game. I cannot articulate enough how that's such a bad and toxic idea. Dating is not a zero-sum game. There is not one man or a group of men who dominate the dating field. There are quite literally millions of women in the world. In the world. Millions. To say that it's a zero-sum game would mean like one dude gets the majority of that pool of women. And that's not even how attraction works. Like, there's so many things they're negating. They're just not looking into. Women aren't attracted to the same thing. That's simply true. Let's take myself, for example. I think according to this guy's schedule or his little hierarchy, I would be at the very least like Chad level, right? I'm tall. I'm 6'8". I have a pretty good face. I'm in decent shape, and I can talk to women. I have a girlfriend. There are women who don't find me attractive just because I'm black. Like, he's negating other social factors. There are women who don't find rich men attractive because they're short. There are women who don't find certain kind of men attractive because they have too much muscle, too little muscle, too tall, not tall enough, too dark, too white, too smart, too dumb, too politically aware, not politically aware enough. Like, there's so many compounding factors that causes attraction. To make this just general statement that these guys, these top 10%, these Chad-looking motherfuckers, they get all the women. That is patently untrue. And the big thing is, it takes away agency from women. It just says like, oh, women are guided by this one biological principle. They're going to go for the hottest male available. And they're all going to go for the same male and not go for anyone else, not have any other interests. And even if we just look around the world, let's be real. There are so many relationships, so many couples you see where it's like, how did he get her? How did she get him, right? Which is a shallow reasoning, albeit, but still. That in itself would let you know that it's not just we have universal attractions. We like what we like. And I don't think there's anything more value to be gleaned from this video. So let's go to a different video.
Undeniable. Simping is getting worse.
Simping.
OnlyFans revenue has increased almost tenfold to 2.5 billion in just 2 years. This man paid more on OnlyFans than he did on rent last month. This teenager donated $20,000 worth of life savings to Twitch e-girl.
Okay, so donating more money to OnlyFans than you pay for rent, probably an issue unless you have that kind of money where you can spend like that. Donating $20,000 to an e-girl for your life savings, again, issues. But that has more to do with people having, chronic issues like, addiction, less so than just simping. I'm gonna let the video play for a little longer, but I'm gonna just make a couple of predictions in my head. They're gonna phrase simping as a way of just like men being nice to women and make that into like a problem. That's what they typically do. If you're nice to a woman, you're a simp. Even though that's not what simping means. Simping comes from black culture. Simping simply means that you are a man or a woman, but typically a man who is doing boyfriend things for a woman who has shown no interest in you. That's what simping means. So like holding the door for a stranger, not simping. Saying a woman looks nice, not simping. Complimenting women, not simping. Being just not a dickhead to women, not simping. But I feel like that's not going to be what happens here.
These are some shocking numbers, but without being rest assured, it's not just these clowns who have to pay the price. Simping has huge ripple effects on the entire dating market and therefore affects everyone, including you. Boiled down, when a man simps, it undermines your value because as women get accustomed to being treated like queens, Their desires from men transforms into preferences, then to expectations, and finally entitlements. And although these examples I've shown are mainly being benefited by a small minority of women at the top with a following, you'll see even at the lower levels, pretty much every average girl is being engulfed with attention, validation, and thirst from an innumerable count of desperate guys. Once more boiled down, the dating market is getting more and more screwed. Anyway, the focal question of this video is going to be why? Why is simping at an all-time high and continuing to set new all-time highs year after year after year? Well, I'm going to be bringing you 5 reasons answering this question. So without wasting any more
real quick, I would like to see the data on, has there been a qualitative study on simping over like the last, let's say 5 years? Or is he just looking at OnlyFans data from the past 2 years and extrapolating from that? I'm just curious if there's any sort of study done on simping is all.
more time on the intro, let's get straight to the first. Reason 1, male thirst. The sad reality of today's dating game is that a lot of guys think so lowly of themselves that they believe their only chance to get their foot in the door is by simping. Every year that passes, the dating market gets more and more competitive. This means an ever-increasing number of guys are being forced out of the market, and the pool of accepted men becomes more and more concentrated to the guys at the top. This leaves a problem, because for the majority of men at the bottom, their desires haven't changed. They have just as much of a will to compete as they always have had. So, in order to fulfill these desires, they've only got 2 options. Either grind for several years trying to reach the top 10%, which is far from guaranteed, or to simp over women and pay for their time so they notice. It's one of these 2 things, or you give up. And for a lot of guys, the simping option looks the most desirable because they see it as the easiest ticket back in the game. But of course the problem is, simping never works out in the long run. Because even if a below average guy manages to attract a top woman into a relationship this way, the woman isn't actually attracted to him, rather only for what he can provide. There will always be a power imbalance as the man has essentially said to the girl from minute 1, you and your time is worth more than me, so I'm happy to make up for that with my financial contribution. Relationships formed this way have no foundations and therefore are a disaster waiting to happen.
Okay, there's a lot I want to say about this. First and foremost, he's not explained what actually simping is. Like I did already, but he had just to actually explain what simping means. And even if he had in a previous video, in this video, hasn't touched it. So that's the weird thing. Number 2, it's the fact that he, and again, a lot of people who subscribe to ideology view dating as such a transactional process where it's, I'm going to pay for your time. And then that's going to give you my attention, and then I'm going to want to date you, and then we're going to be together, but this is going to be the power imbalance. Like, I agree. No relationship that's predicated on financial exchange is going to last very long. The minute the money stops coming, the relationship is going to be done. That's what you built it on. But that's not how any healthy, successful relationship works. Like, it's this is such a bad worldview to take. Again, you guys, simping isn't what he's talking about. What he's talking about, essentially, is prostitution. He's equating men who pay for OnlyFans as if he wants the OnlyFans people are going to then, I don't know, have a shot at dating these content creators, which is never the case. But he's saying that that's how they equal the dating field. It's either you grind for several years. Again, no data with anything he brings. This 10% saying 50% of force stops based off of nothing. But he's saying you have to grind for several years to reach the top 10%. Not detailing what that would actually entail. Grind how? Is it looks maxing? Is it height maxing? What is it? Financial maxing? Like what is it? Like what do you mean by grind? It's, oh man, this is the kind of content that they put out there. I'm just flabbergasted. So yeah, there's a lot out there, but I don't want this video to get too long. But that's just a small snippet. I'm gonna have to do like more of in-depth series on each one, but this guy's entire account is just black pill content. He has this defeatist attitude that things are the way that they are and will not change. But also, here's why they are the way that they are. And it just blames women. Every video he has puts the blame on women. It's women's fault that men thirst after them. It's women's fault that the dating game is so skewed in their favor. It's women's fault. Everything's women's fault because that releases any sort of accountability on men, especially men who fall in this incel thing. So I want to talk directly to the guys who are in this incel category, okay? This black pill shit is not helping you at all. There is no reality that your looks are going to make sure that you can never get anyone. Because, again, attraction is subjective. There is no one who is universally unattractive. There's going to be someone for someone. That's just the numbers game, right? You guys talk about games so much. That's the numbers game. There's over like 6 billion people on the planet. There's going to be someone for you. Not everyone's in a quote 10%. And again, thinking about stuff in terms of numerical value is defeatist. Work on yourself. Ask yourself these questions. What do you bring to a relationship? And what would you like out of a relationship? Outside of physical needs, okay? Like, what do you actually want? Do you want someone who listens to you? Do you want someone who encourages you, who has the same interests as you? Find people like that. You guys are focused so much on looks. I promise you, looks do not matter nearly as much as you think they do. Look at these celebrities, some of the most beautiful people on the planet. Even they can't keep a relationship. Look at you guys talk about how financial stuff. Look at Elon Musk. He's been divorced like 3 times already. Bill Gates is divorced. Jeff Bezos is divorced. These are the richest people on the planet. They have all the power in the world and they still cannot keep women because it's more than that. Their personality probably sucks. Elon Musk's personality definitely sucks. Women are not these creatures that are only attracted to money. Yes, there are going to be some people who only want you for your money, just like there's some people who only want to date someone for status. But that's not just women. Men also do the same thing. You guys need to get out of your head and thinking that this is the only way to exist. It's not. There are plenty of regular people who have relationships. You guys had parents. Now, whether they're together or not, I don't know. But at the very least, by your logic, your dad was able to secure a mate for you to be produced. Is your dad one of the 10%? Probably not. Probably not. Yet he was able to do so. So it is possible, but it's never going to work if you guys have this mentality in your heads that because you were born sub 5, that you'll never give anyone. Don't refer to yourselves as sub 5 or chads or normies or anything like that, because that kind of shit repulses women. I'm going to give you some game right now. Don't talk like that. Don't use incel speak ever, because no one's going to understand it except for other incels. And that's going to bring you further and further and further into that cycle. Do not refer to women as mates, femoids, anything like that. Just call them women. Maybe even girls. Maybe even ladies. Some of them, ma'ams. But nothing else. When talking about what you want out of a relationship, don't focus on the physical. Focus on the mental, the emotional aspects of things. Develop hobbies. Share your hobbies. Find similar interests with people. I promise you, there are so many women out there who are into the same sort of shit you're into. Nerdy stuff, into movies, into music, into films, into art, all that stuff. Even if they are super baddie hottie, they still have interests. Find these interests. Find out your own interests. Share said interests and see what happens. And for the love of God, if you go on a dating site, do not message these women with the immediate proposition of sex, because there's a whole thing of incel pickup lines that I didn't really get into, but if you guys want me to, I will. Do not use pickup lines on women. Unless you're doing it in an ironic manner, they do not work. There's no one line that every woman just falls for. Women are unique individuals and they each have their own likes and dislikes. It's your job to get to know them. And then, based on information that you get from them, act accordingly, right? If they tell you they're really into sports and you're into sports, find out what sports they're into. Talk about that. Don't just assume these women have the same interests. Just like you don't have the same interests as other men, they don't have the same much as other women. Okay, that was me being helpful. I think next time I do this, I'm gonna be less helpful because this is draining me. But if you guys like this sort of changing content or just additional content, leave a comment, leave a like. I'm still working on the kinks, obviously. It's not perfect video, but no one's perfect. Not even especially me, because this is the end of the video and it didn't feel like it.